What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Comic Cave. This week we've got Dustin Nguyen from such great stories like Batman, Detective Comics,
Little Gotham.
Wildcats, Little
Hey
Monster,
guys,
Thunder, and your new art book that you got.
it's through Zoop. It's a crowdfunding book through Zoop, and it's called The Art of Descender. Yeah, so we just launched like maybe a few days ago, and yeah, we're already we met our. This is my first time doing it. It's like our goal or to move to production. We met it in like 2 hours, so which is really cool. I got really
That is
excited.
awesome, dude. That is
Not
super awesome.
not surprised at all, man.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. It's like I put it off for a while, and then finally I was just like, let's just do this, And yeah, I'm really excited. We're like even to this day, it's like just you saw like even today I saw you saw me post on Instagram for you. Just trying to add more things to it, so people can get the most out of it that they can.
Yeah, I'm digging
Yeah.
that little sticker set that you're
Yeah,
gonna.
it's fun.
That's gonna be dope. We want to start by saying how long have you been in the industry?
I got my first gig in 2000 with Wildstorm. It was my first thing was a crossword puzzle for Milk magazine, and then that was like I got to draw Batman and Robin and stuff, and then after that, my first month or my first published like book was Jet. Jet. It was a 4 issue miniseries, but that was like my first year. It's like I keep saying my first, but I guess before that I was a 10-page anthology story inside, also drawing Jet, in Wildstorm's anthology called Gin Active. Gin Active, I remember. I don't know if you guys remember. Gin Active was like an anthology featuring all the loose characters that weren't Gen 13. So it was very fun. It was like it was a good training grounds.
Was being a comic artist always like was that your set goal? Like you knew that this was, or was this something that you sort of like, you know what, I'm good at this, let me try it. What was the career
No, no,
trajectory like?
I actually didn't know I was going to be a comic artist. I wanted to draw. I knew I liked drawing a lot, but I was never really into like art. It's like I appreciated art a lot, and now I appreciate it more. But growing up, I never thought I was going to go into comics. I always wanted to be like, industrial designer, entertainment designer, something for entertainment, like, working in games, toys, anything like that. And I tried for all those, and I actually got rejected by a lot of them. Um, but comics is something, it was there. It's kind of like weird. It's one of those things that was there and I never really paid attention to it, you know? And because I always read comics when I was little. It was like some of the first things I did. And then one day I went to Comic-Con. It was like, oh God, dude, I saw one of those Comic-Con books. I was like, oh, cool. It had like Alex Ross drawing Superman breaking out of it. And it was like a promotion for San Diego Comic-Con. So yeah, I just drove down for one day, and that was the days where you can actually go there, buy a ticket when you get there and stuff. You didn't need to pre-register and get in the queue.
The good old
Um, yeah, it was wild, dude.
I wanted to
And
say
I
hi
wasn't
this
prepared.
year, but I didn't get a line ticket, so
I know, right? Dude, it was weird, like seeing it go from that to what it is now, which it's I can imagine. I mean, I know why it is that way it is now. It's because comics became very popular, like popular arts became very big. But yeah, I went in, bought a ticket for a day. I wasn't even deciding to like. I didn't think I was gonna stay there the whole day until I got there, and I was like, dude, this place is massive, and I was getting free stuff everywhere. I was like, this is great. So I was like, oh shoot, there's another. It's going on weekends. I was like, I'll just stay here. So I slept in my car. Uh, the first the first hour, I tried sleeping in my car in the parking lot, the underground parking lot in this, and it got so hot, man. And a good thing is I got those anime fans they gave out where you can fan yourself. I was like fanning myself with those free merch, and then I was like, "This is too hot. I got to get out of here." So I moved my car across the street to like an open, like the parking lots. But I was sleeping in there, and it was like hot too. So I rolled down my window. But then there was this homeless guy that would come by and knock on my window every few minutes. He's like, "Hey man, can you give me something?" And I kept giving him money, and I was like, I'm gonna be broke if I stay here. So I just came like, I was like, check it out, dude. Here's $20. I'm gonna leave for the night. You're not gonna find me anymore. So he's like, cool. I was like, can you watch my car? Then he's like, yeah, man. So I went, and then I looked at the schedule, and I was like, oh, there's little rooms open. So they were screening anime. So I went in there, and I was like, they were showing it inside the Marriott or something like that. So I went in, I was like, oh, cool. Empty room, you walk in, there's this animation. I was like, I could lay in this room for a while. So I go there, I throw my backpack down. I threw my backpack down, and like, I just see heads starts popping up. Everyone was sleeping in there. They're like, it was like that scene out of like 28 Days Later when he went into church and head's just like, it was like that. And I was like, oh dang, everyone's onto this. So so I slept in there for a while, and then they closed at 3. So they kicked everyone out. I was like, damn, where am I gonna sleep now? And then I went on the side. I walked outside the Marriott and I saw a bunch of people just sleeping on the sidewalk. I was like, oh, this is the thing to do. I was like, I guess. So I just slept on the sidewalk too. And I didn't know, but I woke up and I was like really in front of the line for Hall H. And I was like, this is great. Yeah, and they were back then. Hall H wasn't really doing a lot of things. It was they had stuff like, I don't know if you remember a thing called Trailer Park. It was
Yeah.
basically just it was just they're just showing trailers for every movies. They didn't bring in like the big Hollywood stuff like they do now, but yeah, that was my first experience with Comic Con. And then I had drawn some pages and stuff. I didn't know what was going on. I drew in there. I walked in there with some pages, and I was like, yeah, I'm really good. I'm really good. I walked in, did a few portfolio reviews. I was like, no, I'm no good. I was like, this sucks. You walk in there with confidence with like this portfolio, and everyone has a portfolio. You know what I mean? Everyone, and they're all amazing. And I met one of my best friends in there. His name was Edwin Ewan. He's actually the guy that he founded SGX Print, the guy that I go through print all my stuff. They sponsor Comic Cons like Comic Con Revolution and stuff. So I met him in line, and he actually showed me. He's like, what are you doing, dude? You're just drawing stuff on like wax paper. I was like, this isn't wax paper. This is like bond paper. Because I came from a drafting background. I came from an engineering draft. So I drew on what paper. He's like, no, you got to draw on like 11 by 17 paper. You got to break it down to panels like this. And then, you got to ink it too. And I was like, what? And he was showing me like how a comic book was put together. And I kind of had an idea because I always looked at the comic books, but I never really understood what a penciler, inker. And back then, the old comics, they just called them layouts and finisher. You know what I mean? So the job between a penciler and an inker back then was very, it was divided in a few different ways. So yeah, he's like showing me stuff, and I was like, cool, man. He's like, and we eventually moved in together in like a little studio with like 6 other dudes, and we all wanted to be comic artists, but we our living room was like living room, TV in the front. We had 3 rows of table. I mean, row table here, row table here, and just Street Fighter machines, like joysticks built into our tables sometimes. And we just sit there and we just draw all day and play video games. At the time, I worked in engineering, so I did 3D mechanical design for companies out in Costa Mesa. Yeah, and eventually just kept drawing my stuff until one day, got the call from Wildstorm. They're like, "Hey, come in, show us your stuff." And from there, just kind of just staying true to the gig and trying to keep with deadlines till they keep giving you more work. And eventually I landed Wildcats. So yeah, the Wildcats was like my main ongoing series, and that kind of like kickstarted everything. And moved on to, I got some attention, got into the Batman office. Bob Schreck hired me to do Batman As the Crow Flies with Judd Winnick. So that was my first Batman series. And yeah, and then I went back and did some Authority. I'm probably gonna skip some stuff. It's like I don't really. It's hard to remember everything I did,
Yeah.
But you jump in anytime if you got questions, because they'll probably help kick my mind into gear. But yeah, and that's where I am now. And finished up 14 years of exclusive with DC, something like that came out. And Jeff Lemire and Jeff, who we never worked together before, but we knew each other in passing through Comic Con, and we both worked at Vertigo. And he's like, hey, you want to do he just came out of his contract too. So I was like, let's do some create our own stuff together. And yeah, our first book was Descender. And then after that, we did Ascender, then Robin and Batman, then Little Monsters. And we're back on Robin and Batman now for the second volume. And yeah, here we are promoting more Descender stuff because we can't seem to get away from it because we both love the property so much. You know what I mean? Like we love Tim and Bandit and them. Yeah.
Talking about Descender, at one point when it first came out, it was like optioned for like a film. Whatever happened with that?
Yeah, actually, it was option. It got bought by Sony before the book even came out. So, I mean, that was like really, it helped the book move a lot. And then Sony went through a kind of like a shuffle with their CEOs, and I'm not sure how it is, but they went through a shuffle. So they only optioned it for maybe I think 18 months or something like that, like a 12 months or 18 months, and then they extended again. But between that time, we were shopping around for a writer, and producer, director, and stuff. And we interviewed a bunch of them. Jeff sat down. We looked at a bunch of scripts. There was actual scripts for. We read a lot of scripts, and Jeff and I weren't really. I mean, we part of our deal was we got final pass at whether it goes or not. And none of it really felt true to the book. So Jeff and I just we kind of passed on a few, and then pretty soon the option ran out. So they renewed it again, I think once, and then I think they wanted to renew it again, but then Jeff and I we wanted to take it back. So after it expired, we're like, yeah, let's take it back, and let's see what we can do with it again. And then it was bought again by I think a smaller group of NBC Universal, and then we had it. We right when we sold it was during the whole it's the pandemic and there's the riots. There was a lot of things going on, and it got kind of like we never really made a big deal out of it because it didn't seem cool to like push this in people's face during the time with that kind of climate. So so they held it for a while, and it was really hard to really get casting and scripts that we were happy with. And pretty soon I was just like, Jeff, why don't you just write it? You know what I mean? And he's like, oh, maybe, something like that. But I know like Jeff before that, I don't know if he really wanted to write it or not, because both of us were really happy with the book.
Mm-hmm.
And also Jeff is insanely busy. You know what I mean? Like, I think adding another writing assignment to it, it was just like, I was like, I don't think he had I can't say he had the bandwidth because that dude does like a million things at once. He's the most prolific guy I know,
Yeah.
Yeah, but we got that back, and then right now it's in the process of being optioned again. So it was always about casting and getting a script that we like. It's really hard casting Tim because he's a little boy that doesn't age. So like we in a lot of shows like say like Stranger Things and stuff. You saw the kids just kind of like in one season they just got huge. Tim doesn't age, so we either have to record like they have to film everything in one shot or do some CG magic, So
You're gonna have to go somewhere where child labor laws are non-existent.
yeah, something like that, or kids that don't grow.
We gotta get all 10 seasons out of this kid now.
Yeah. But it was that, and then I mean we're looking into we're open to the idea of animation and stuff. So, and for me personally, I love animation, you know what I mean?
Same.
But we keep getting offers from different studios, and it's really difficult. I finally see, like, I remember before I even started doing all this, some of my friends that were doing like IPs and stuff, they're like, you can actually make a living just selling stuff that would never get made. And I never understood what they said, what they meant. And I've talked to a few like creators. They're like, dude, my thing gets optioned year after year and they're never making it. And I don't want to be like that, and also I don't really pay attention to that. Like, I just want to draw, like Jeff and I, when we put together a book, we don't really think about like whether it's going to sell in Hollywood or not, because honestly, like those things sell really well, but book sales, the center sales, through the years have just been great. You know what I mean? Like it's never disappointed. It's always like, it's always been there for me. And I can't imagine working on something just for the goal of selling it to someone else to make it. Because when I draw, I just want to draw. Your job is day to day, and if your day to day sucks, your life's gonna suck. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? Like getting up for drawing something you don't want just because you're hoping for that big, cash out at the end. It's like it's cool, but that was never me. I just enjoy drawing, and every day, I get up, I want to draw something fun. Because I don't see things. I mean, I do see things as a monthly deadline, but I see most of my life happening each day. Which is it's like the drunk stew, man. One day at a time, dude. It's like, yeah.
But and you can definitely tell when something's like made for the attempt to sell it for big bucks and when there's actually love behind it. And I think the fact that your guys' sales have been so continuous and the support and love, you don't get funded for an art book in 2 hours unless the people actually see the love that's involved with the project. So I think that's a testament to you guys.
I think it was really refreshing to see people still having an interest, because next year has been 10 years since the center came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking for it, because I have it and I was looking out.
Yeah.
I started looking back at all the pages and I was like, dude, this was years ago. This is when some of the other comic shops we used to go to where we met you at one of the comic
Yeah.
shop was like, shit, that's when you were like cholo bald.
I know. I thought I was gonna go bald at one point, so I was like, I'm just gonna shave my head.
Yeah.
But no, it's refreshing to see people still interested. And hey, man, I have nothing against like creating stuff for money. I love money, but but like I have nothing against creating something and saying, hey, I just want to sell this. I would do it in a heartbeat, and I've done it before, But when it comes to like something that I'm gonna be doing, like Descender took up like Descender and Center combined took up almost 4 or 5 years of my life. You know what I mean? And that's something that you have to live with. It's like they become your books become your family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can look at every page and tell exactly what page happened that day, what my kids were doing, what grade they were in. You know what I mean? Like those are the books that I remember. And then there's books where I couldn't like projects I couldn't wait to get done. Those I look back, I'm like, I don't remember drawing that at all. Like it comes out 3 months later, I'm like, I don't remember drawing that at all. It's like so something when you work on it and you love, you just kind of like, it holds to it. So
There's so many great pages throughout the whole series. How did you kind of select what you wanted in the overall art book?
in the art book, it's definitely going to contain a lot of the covers or most of the covers because a lot of the times the covers were like stuff that covers and a few splash pages and a few pages with full design stuff. They were just stuff that I couldn't wait to get to. Like Jeff would write the script and I would read it. I'm like, damn, I can't wait to get to like this story or this page. So I would have it, moving in my head. I would like before I even got to like 3 months out, before I even got to it would be in my head like what I want to draw, how I want to lay it out, And those are the ones that you're going to see in the books, you know what I mean? But reading Jeff's scripts sometimes, I remember it was the issue where Effie and Andy, the telling them when they were growing up from they first met to the end when they were met as kids on like some abandoned planet. And I remember reading that script on the plane flying into Seattle. And I wasn't going to be able to draw that issue until probably 2 months out. I remember reading that script and I was on the plane. I got to Seattle. I met up with Jeff. We were in the hotel lobby. I was like, dude, this is the best thing I've ever written. I was like, I can't believe I have to wait like, how many months to get to draw this book. And that's the kind of stuff I would put in there, stuff that I was so excited to draw. And the entire book was exciting to draw, but that issue alone, it was like 20, 21, 22 pages. It read like when I read it, it read like an entire like anime, like, from beginning to end. That's how good storytelling a script. When you read a script, you're like, this is good stuff, And it's almost, I'm as excited to draw it as I am like almost scared to draw it sometimes, because it already reads so well that sometimes you're like, man, I'm just gonna fuck it up when I draw it, So, but no, that kind of stuff is exciting, stuff like that. Yeah, that's what I'm selecting to go in there. So, and a lot of behind the scenes stuff like pencil sketches, design stuff, that kind of stuff you don't get to see because usually when the book comes out, you just see what's printed. So you don't really get to see all the hard labor and like the hair pulling that went into it. So,
but those are the I think that's why so many of the absolutes have done so well because they include some of that rough draft,
yeah.
some of that
yeah.
behind the scenes type stuff like you were talking about. So I can definitely see the desire to have something like that out there. And circling back, you were talking about how you guys got the they got the rights for it or the IP. Was that your like I made it moment when it came to comics, or did your dang I made it moment come sooner than that?
I think I would say my I made it moment was actually when I did Batman Black and White. Like I got to draw it, I got to write it and draw it, and it was only 5 pages. That's the thing. But like growing up, I remember growing up picking up the first Batman Black and White trade, where they collected stories from what you call it,
Gotham Knights.
Zafino was in there. Gotham Knights was in there. Bruce Timm was in there. Otama was in there. The Akira guy was in. I read it and I was just like, dude, this is benchmark stuff. Like, I never really once considered myself a true Batman because so many people draw Batman. You know what I mean? And they're all amazing. Everyone's amazing. But I was like, you don't really get nailed down as like a Batman artist until you get that Batman Black and White story. I mean, nowadays, that line is kind of like phased out and they're making so much Batman black and white. But growing up, for me, to be able to be on that book would mean that I've actually made it, And it wasn't about money. It wasn't matter how broke I was or how much money I made doing. It was like once you get there, I was like, damn, I've been selected by Bob Schreck. Bob Schreck and Mark Chiarello were the two people that put together that Batman black and white line. I believe it was more Mark Chiarello, but I'm not sure. But both those guys, I mean, they were both like guys that worked on Dark Knight Returns, the first book, like stuff like that, the old classic 90s stuff. So they had amazing taste in artists. So like when they tell me something works, I believe them. When they tell me something doesn't work, I totally believe them, So to be able to work on that book and then get my black and white statue, I was like, it's kind of like it's like getting it's like winning a Batman award, It's like, so it was really cool.
Like,
and then yeah, it's like that, And then I got the Batman black and white Batman Beyond statue too. And that was like just basically, I mean, I felt like I covered my like checklist, I checked off everything. It was like, got Batman Beyond, it's like I'm good. So after that, I think having done that, it made me it gave me closure to like, I was like, I'm ready to move on to do some creator own stuff. And, now I want to tell my own stories, just own my own thing. So yeah. And then jumping into Descender, it was like, the funny thing about jumping into Descender is like starting over all over again. Cause I've never painted a book before. I've never owned anything. I've never created anything on my own. Working with Jeff, it was both our first time doing like an image book. So it was kind of eye-opening, but it also, it humbles you, and how much work goes into putting a book out. Like, so that was fun. But yeah, I wouldn't say that was like, I made it. I don't feel like I've ever really made it, but if you want to put like, I feel like I put my dent into the industry is, when I got to do my Batman black and white, which no one knows of anymore. It's like, sometimes I tell people like, I've never heard of it. I was like, God damn it. I go through a whole story. They're like, never heard of it, bro.
Then you're not a Batman fan.
Real ones know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fun, man. But yeah, that's it.
And just I'm talking about your fandom, you as a kid growing up, you mentioned, reading the comic books. Power Pack issue number 9.
The one I got from the library. So
what was so amazing of it? Because I've heard you, I don't know where, but I heard you say once that was your favorite issue of all time. You think
it was my first comic. It was my first comic that I actually got, I mean, it was like it was like I've seen comics before. I never really bought any. Obviously, I read it and I couldn't afford them and stuff like that. And to this day, I can't remember if I'm pretty sure I didn't steal it from the library because they would have hounded me down for it. But I think it was like someone sold it and it was like, it had a library stamp in it because, libraries sell their books sometimes. And it was the first issue I read and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. It had the entire Power Kids. They were at sea fighting a sea serpent. And, they brought in some, one thing great about Power Pack is if you didn't read any comic book at all at Marvel, but if you read Power Pack alone, it would introduce you to every single character in like Marvel universe. You know what I mean? Because every month there was like a new guest star. So like for me, I was like, I can't afford to read all the Iron Mans. I can't afford to collect Captain America. You know what I mean? But if you read Power Pack, those guys show up. Like the Avengers always showed up because Franklin was part of the. He was Franklin number 4.5. His Reed Richards and Sue's son. And you always had Thor in there. That's the first time I saw Beta Ray Bill. And Cloak and Dagger blew my mind. Yeah, it was just stuff like that, like, but that issue of Power Pack, I just read it and I was like, I was like this refugee kid from Vietnam that kind of like, I landed in Georgia and I grew up in kind of like out of nowhere and then I moved to California. So I never really knew anything about New York. But when I read Power Pack, it felt like, I don't know if that's how New York really is, but when I read it, I was like, these are the streets of New York. I was like, I felt like I knew. But yeah. And the artwork is amazing. Like if you look at it, you can tell the way I draw Tim, the way I draw like Damien. It's just I'm just really just mimicking John Bognet. You know what I mean? He drew like the best looking kids with big boots and powers and just flying in the air. That was like John Bog. He was amazing. So yeah. Yeah, no, I'm amazed that I even remember this stuff because I'll be honest, I don't read a lot of comics at all today. You know what I mean? These days, my knowledge of comics isn't that as vast as a lot of people, a lot of my friends, they just school me in comics. They just tell me what's going on every month. So yeah, I rely on them these days.
Yeah, but because you're creating them, so
Yeah, I think it's just once it becomes like your job, you kind of like you're too busy. It's like maybe too much behind the scenes that it kind of takes a little of the magic away, you know what I mean? So now you try to find your way into drawing and stuff, so and creating it. So yeah.
so what was the last comic that you remember reading?
Uh Power Pack. No, not the whole one, not the whole one. They just re-released Louise Simonson and June Brigman just came out with Power Pack, a new Power Pack series. And it was the last I just picked up issue 1 and 2. Yeah, it was good. It was very cute and it's just amazing that I don't know, there was like 5 iterations of that book or something. I don't know. They kept bringing it and like canceling, bringing it back, and it's still going, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that was the last issue I read. That and my issue of I know I read my own stuff sometimes because I actually wrote a Spider-Man story. I've never written anything for Marvel. I've never really drawn interiors for Marvel, so that was exciting. The day it came out, I went to look for it, kind of like I've been doing this for like 20 something years, and it felt like my first book came out. I'm like, oh, I went to go look for it, and like went to the store, hunted it down. Yeah, it's kind of like that feeling never really leaves. But then every once in a while, you do a project, and it's just like it reminds you. You're like, oh man, this can still be new, and this can still be refreshing. Yeah,
Yeah. That's the power of this media, man. That's why we love it so much.
yeah, I love it, dude. I always like. I remember when I first started comics. It was like all the jobs I got rejected from. Like I got rejected from designing toys, from animation, like gaming and stuff. As soon as I started comics, like 2 years in, as soon as I went on a monthly book, all those companies came calling back, and they're like, "Hey, you want to do some stuff for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And I always thought I would branch out and do other stuff, but I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I was never happy. I was never happy until like I remember doing that stuff, and then at the end of the day, I was like, "Oh, I gotta get back to," because I freelanced so many vendors. I was like, "Let me get back to drawing," on my book, and I would get to my book, and I was like, "This feels like home." I was like, and it took a few years. And it took a few years, and after that, I was like, I think this is what I want to do. And I think life became a little easier because sometimes as an artist, you're just conflicted. You don't know what kind of artist you want to be. You don't know what you want to do, and then you see other people doing something. You're like, like I want to do that. Like the grass is always greener. That's why those people that work in film or games, they're like, I just want to draw a comic book. I just want to write a comic book. Then you got guys that work in comics, it's like I want to work in film. I want to design video games. And, some of them make the jump, and then they find it and they're happy, so that's the problem with being an artist sometimes, you get pulled different ways because you're always like, you want to be happy and you want to do something that you really love, but you don't know because there's so many things out there. But then once you figure out exactly what you want to do, or you've failed enough at what you can't do, then you're humbled. You're like, maybe this is all I can do, but, with me, I just love comics so much.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out for what's it, James Jean?
Oh, James Jean came from fine art, so he was always like doing that stuff. You know what I mean? His stuff was amazing.
Yeah.
Do you ever notice everyone that comes from? I wouldn't say everyone, but most artists that come from that kind of like background, they kind of draw like James Jean, or maybe like I've seen other artists that comes from a comic book. I mean, from a fine art background, do comic book stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's James stuff, and they're like, no, that's someone else. And I kind of noticed that. I'm like, so I almost feel like, is it something in the way you're raised, and then you're fed another like ingredient, and then you become like this artist? Like, it makes me wonder if there's a formula to things, And I hope there's not. But no, James is just amazing too. I remember first time I saw stuff on the Robin covers. It wasn't the Fable stuff. It was the Robin covers because for some reason the Fable stuff was amazing, but then when you see cool shit and then you mix in Batman, it becomes like 100 times cooler. You know what I mean? So it's almost like that. It's like shoes. Like sure, Crocs are cool. You make them look like a Batmobile. Fuck yeah.
we had this conversation not too long ago about. I think I made
right?
my first Croc.
I don't know. Maybe it's just like the nerd in us, right? Where we're like, if something's cool, you mix in Batman, it's just cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
me,
what I
dude.
told him. I said, dude, I think I'm gonna break my own rule. I'm gonna buy a pair of Crocs, and I sent them the picture, and they're like, "Oh my God, I want those too." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, dude. It's funny, dude. I saw him and I was just like, whoa, this is something I would never get, but I would probably get just to have it because just to say I have it. I don't know.
yeah."
I don't know, man.
But as far
You
as
should
like,
get them.
yeah, as far as like branching out though, but you. I mean, it's cool that you actually gone back and done some of the stuff that you wanted to do originally, because you also got the little Gotham action figures though.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We that was actually through comics. That was through my so that was when DC still had DC Direct, which is their toy line.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it came from the thing from the book, and they're like, yeah, like, we're gonna do. And I work with my director there, Sean Knapp. And he knew that I had toy design background because before, while I was working in comics, I also actually worked with Mattel. So I worked on stuff like, dude, no one would ever. We try to bring back Street Sharks. I worked on Hot Wheels. I worked on like Kung Fu Panda toys for like McDonald's or something like that. I worked on like a bunch of ridiculous stuff that like I don't even remember doing, you know? Um,
Street sharks are cool.
Yeah,
Street Sharks are cool, man. Um,
they're coming
Remember
back.
Tiger Sharks? Tiger Sharks, Street Sharks? Yeah, there was like a whole after like Ninja Turtles became big, everyone wanted to kind of do their own mutated animals kind of like thing, you know?
That
Um
extreme
oh shit.
dinosaurs.
Yeah,
Owls?
radioactive no, what is it? Teenage it wasn't teenage, it was something radioactive hamsters
Yeah,
and then
Adolescent,
the adolescent
adolescent.
radioactive hamsters.
yeah.
I got
I was
And I
that.
just
think
talking to my friend about this the other day. I was like, dude, you guys don't remember this, but before that, there was even an even more obscure one. It was called Fission Chicken. Basically, nuclear radio. It was truly like self-published indie stuff, dude. Like I remember it was like you could still see the staples were off and everything. I found it at my local comic store. I was like, dude, those were the days of like true self-publishing, you know. Um, but yeah, the Little Gotham line was really fun. It was because the Little Gotham books had taken off so big. Like they didn't think it was going to take off because initially they didn't even give us a printed issue. They're like, you're going to do the book because I pitched it and we kept getting turned down so many times. And then finally, Warner Brothers did a gallery and they asked me to do some pieces for it. And then I did it. And then I think DC was like, yeah, let's do this book, you know. And they're like, but the book is going to be digital. I was like, what's that? They're like, it's not going to be printed. It's going to be 10 pages digital and you got to draw it vertically or, is this vertical or
yeah,
sideways?
critical.
Yeah.
Horizontal.
So, yeah. So I was the one that actually created the first template for DC to do that with Arkham Knights, the video game comic,
Yeah.
with Paul Dini. So Paul Dini and Derek Friedel. So I was the one DC put in charge to make sure it reads a certain way, and I created a template for them and everything, which no one cares now because digital like you can do anything you want with digital. And I told them back then, I was like, it doesn't matter how I lay it out. Phones are gonna get so like smart and useful. You can just move wherever you want, you know. And they're like, but it's easier for the readers to read it this way. And I was like, all right. So, but yeah, Little Gotham, they started out as just a digital book, and I was like, so we're not gonna print it? They're like, no. I was like, it kind of bums you out. You're like, oh, God, do I really want to put this much work into something that's experimental? But then I did pitch it, and like, I started drawing it. I was like, I really loved it. I was like, I really love this. I pitched it. I fought for it. Like, why wouldn't I? I remember going to one of the last Wildstorm lunches, and I was talking to Jim Lee about it, and he's like, yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah, if you can give me a pitch story by Monday, some art and stuff. So I went home and like just over the weekend I wrote up the first issue, which wasn't the first story. The first script to be written was New Year's Revolution, where the three all the Gotham girls, they go on at night and they water the plants and feed the animals stuff, free the cats. That was the first pitch, and then yeah. So I remember pitching it, and I remember how much I loved it. So I was like, you know what? I don't care if it's digital. I'm just gonna do it. So I pitched it. I mean, we did it. Derek Friedhoff and I, we did it. It came out. It launched. The first issue launched on Halloween, which was the Halloween issue, and then that was in October, and October was also New York Comic Con. So it only only two stories had gone out, had released that time. And I was at New York Comic Con, and DC had a big, they have their New York Comic Con DC party, and I was there, and then I met with Hank Canals, who was the vice president of DC at the time. He was also in charge of the book. He was the one that greenlit it. So I love him to death for that. And he's like, "Hey man, just wanted to let you know the numbers are great." I was like, "That's awesome." He's like, "They're so great. Do you think you could do it twice a month?" I was like, "Yeah, I could do it twice a month because initially we released only 10 pages at a time. The stories were only 10 pages." He's like, "You think you can do it twice a month?" I was like, "Yeah, I could do it twice a month." I was like, "Yeah, I would love to do it twice a month. That's so cool because now that feels like an actual 20 pages, like a normal comic." He's like, "That's where I'm getting it." He's like, "We're gonna move it to print. Do you want to move to print?" I was like, "Why do you even gotta ask? Of course I want to move to print. This was the plan all along." So yeah, it moved to print and it did great. And then the guy that Sean Knapp, who worked with me on my Batman Beyond Black and White and Batman statues, he was also head of the design team for toys and stuff. He's like, "Do you want to make these toys for Low Gotham?" I was like, "Heck yeah, dude." I was like, "Of course I want to do it." He's like, "Do you want to?" He's like, "We're trying out a new company in Korea. They do 3D. I don't know how you feel about 3D printing, 3D modeling." I was like, "Dude, if it looks good, it's gonna look good." He's like, "Well, these guys are only known for painting. They're not really known to make good sculpts or anything." I was like, I have nothing to lose here. It's not like I'm paying for this out of my pocket, and it's like we're getting toys for a book I love doing. Um, and yeah, that went to that's what we got the first toys, and that was yeah, Sean Knapp's great, man. I work with that guy, and this is how I got the Batman Beyond statue. I was hanging out in the DC office because I drove in, I had lunch, I was visiting one of my editors, um, and then I ran into Sean, and he was there, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "It's good, man. Good seeing you, blah blah." And I forgot what we were talking about. I was like, "Dude, we should do a Batman Beyond Black and White statue." He's like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." He's like, "What do you think?" I was like, "I want to do it." He's like, "If you go home and you design it this week and you send it to me, we'll make it." So I went home and I just drew it up, and then he kept his word. We made it. We sent it in, and it's like that statue is one of the hardest ones to find,
Yeah,
which
One of the
Fancy.
most
which I find
expensive ones too.
yeah, which I find amazing because before that, every statue they made, they only limited to 1,500. That was the first statue they made that they was like unlimited production. They would just keep making it. So I don't understand why it's so hard to find. I mean, did they not make enough or something like that? So that always to me was interesting too. But
I think
I love that.
yeah, I think low key part of it was that everybody was so after like the Frank Miller one, the Neil Adams one, the Jim Lee one that
Yeah.
I think it kind of snuck in and nobody
Yeah.
there's a Batman Beyond one, and because I know that that's what happened with us, and we're like, who the hell did that? And then we're like,
Yeah.
Dustin. And when we tried
Dude.
to finally look for it, it was already gone. Like I don't think that they, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what they did with it, but it was great. I loved it. It was sculpted by Jonathan Matthews, who is an amazing sculptor. He's the one that did the Mignola one. So
yeah,
and he did it traditionally, so he carved in everything. And I was like, dude, there's no changes. Like there's nothing I can comment, you know what I mean? Like even my first one, like that whole line, they just get the best sculptors, the first one I did, the first Batman black and white statue was sculpted by an artist named Joseph Mina, or his name is Joe Mina. Just he is actually he's the head director for sculpting for the U.S. Mint, the coins, not the collectible stuff. The
really.
dude like met with the Dalai Lama to make a coin. He's head of that department where they do all the sculpting for the coins. So like if you ever buy like stuff off the U.S. Mint, because I'll buy it sometimes for my son who collects the coins, it'll say who sculpted what, and you'll see it right there. The dude like he sculpts like the money we're using, which is wild. So, so when I talk to him sometimes, I'm like, dude, I can't believe you're just here making like, action figures. But he's like, he's like me. He's like a big nerd. It's like we're just like, yeah, dude, but it's so cool to work on this stuff. So yeah, it's crazy the people you meet in comics that worked in other stuff. But yeah, that was a fun. Low Gotham was really fun.
What would you say is probably what's been your favorite non-comic thing that you've done? Because is it true or false that you've done did you ever do a Pokemon card?
I did Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
YuGiOh cards. Okay, that's what I was trying to get.
Yeah, I did Yu-Gi-Oh cards for I worked for Konami Japan, not even Konami America. It was Konami Japan. So like everything we worked on was um done through Google Translate the early days, like, and it was very fun, dude. I did. I wonder how many I did. Like maybe 5 or 6 cards or something. My favorite one was the Slurpee. The Slurpee. It was like a melted Slurpee. Um, I didn't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh at all when I took on the job. I was like, it pays. I get to draw whatever, they tell me, and I get to be on a card and stuff. So sometimes you take the gig just because it's something you've always wanted to do, even if you don't know anything about it. But you're like, it's cool. Do something that your friends like. You know what I mean? So even though I don't really know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh, I have a lot of friends that are like Yu-Gi-Oh fans. So when I tell them, they're like, "No way!" And they'll look it up and they're like, "Oh, you did the shittiest card." I was like, "That's me." So yeah, which is fine. You know what I mean? Which is fine. So
So Slurpee, who are the other five so we can buy them all up on eBay right now before they blow up?
Slurpee one was just called. See, the thing is, they didn't really tell me the name. It was just a project number, and then kind of like a description. One was like Slurpee. One was called Handsome Knight. I was like, and also you got to understand this is translated from Japanese, so there's probably 3 or 4 translations before it even got to me. So,
He's like,
but I
this is
did do a
called
lot of
bullshit.
DC cards and stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was fun too.
Was that your favorite? Would you say then that's your favorite non-comic related thing that you did?
Um, I would say that's the most fun one to talk about. You know what I mean? Like it's fun to talk about because again, some stuff I don't even remember doing it, and then I look at it because the good part is I used to work completely traditional. I still do a lot of stuff's traditional, so I'll see it and it's like it's cool. Like I'll have the original art. I can give it to my friend that's actually a Pokemon. I mean, a Digimon like collector. So it's cool. It's cool to like to have something you can actually gift to people when you're done.
When did you make the switch to digital? Or I know you still work both, but
Um, I've always worked digitally. That's the thing. It was always choosing. It was like choosing, do I have time and do I want to do it fast? Or I wouldn't say like fast, but it's like there's some things I can't do traditionally because I'm a horrible inker. I can ink like one cool page, one cool pinup, but like if for me to do an entire something in ink, it's really hard. I want to say the first time I did some digital was probably working on Batman Beyond covers because I found there are some things I wanted to do. I wouldn't say I couldn't do, but I wanted to do um, with the way Batman Beyond looked that I couldn't do traditionally. So I was like, and digital just creates like this cool effect. Sometimes, it looks cool. And I think I would say that's when I made the switch where I started using Photoshop for a lot of things, and I switched to Clip Studio for a lot of drawing because Photoshop's great, but it crashes all the time for me. I'm not really like, and I'm not great at digital, so I keep like 3 apps open just to switch between brushes, which is like the most like it is very is rookie move, like, but I'll like yeah, I'll switch between software just so I can use a certain brush that's not available in another software. Someone that's good would just create a brush that they could use in one software. And my daughters try to show me, but I was just like teaching this old guy how to, she gets frustrated. No, she doesn't get frustrated, but I'm just like, I feel bad. I'm like trying to teach this dude how to use like, the internet, so, but yeah, but Little Monster is the first book that I did completely digital. Mostly because I wanted to use the screen tones and I still wanted to do everything myself, but I still wanted to be on schedule. And there were things that I could do on there that I couldn't do with normal uh, traditional inking for myself because I'm not like a strong inker. Um, but the weird thing is that book still is completely laid out in pencil, traditionally in pencil. It's just so I'll do a lot of the layout, the roughs in pencil. They were very loose, but then I'll go back in and I'll draw everything else digitally. So all the covers are painted, but yeah, that was like it was a really fun book. I love Little Monsters, dude.
oh, it's
Yeah.
so much
Yeah,
fun.
dude.
And I was kind of curious too, because there's so much screen tone. There's so much tone in that
Yeah.
book. So it makes a lot more sense that it was digital and you're not cutting out.
Yeah. Clip art. I mean, Clip Studio is great for it. There's this thing where you can draw with screen tones, which is I found amazing. Because in the old days, like when you look at old Kevin Eastman Ninja Turtle books, they actually bought screen tones, and they come in a clear sheet and you would add solution. I believe it's you add solution A, it would go one way, and then you add solution B, it would create more. So there was a science behind it, but it becomes very expensive and very time consuming. And if you mess up, you're kind of you're screwed. So,
I heard it's super toxic too. So
I mean, yeah, probably, dude. I mean, I heard a lot of the tools we used back then were very toxic. So I found my old box of like old ink and everything. I was like, this is great. I found it all. And I was like, and then one of them I cracked open and then I was cleaning out the tubes of ink because I wanted to refill it with my own ink because the ink that came with that pen was it's water based. So once I ink it, I can't really paint over it without it bleeding. So I dumped it out and I dumped out the black. It was fine. I rubbed it on my the red for some reason. The tubes were I would say at least 5 to 7 years old. It got on my hands and I washed it off, but then I noticed that it actually soaked into my nails. Like I couldn't scrub it off with acetone. I couldn't get it, and it started to worry me. I was like, is this thing just like soaking itself into my nails? Did it find a way to get into my and opening in my? It was like the symbiote. And I was really starting to worry. And then I went a day without thinking about it until I was in the arts. I was in the art store. Then I went to eat. Well, I was at In-N-Out, and then I went to the art store, art supply warehouse. And while I was there, I was like, it's starting to bother me. And then it really started bothering me. I was like licking it. I was rubbing, and I was like, it's really starting to bother me. I was like, because I'm kind of also like a germaphobe, where I'm just like, so I got home and I was just like busting out all the solutions to do everything, and I finally got it in my hands, and it's still to this day it still worries me. So I say to this day, this happened like 3 days ago.
Say it's still red.
No, it was, dude. It worried me because it wasn't red; it was pink. It was almost like it was like diluted to the point where it seeped in your skin and just made its home there. And it worried me. Yeah.
What is
No, I'm dramatic, dude. That's dramatic. Where are you guys anyway? Was
We're at
all
my house.
you're at your house? Okay, is this where you guys always film?
Yes.
Yeah. We've moved up
I
in
mean,
the garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't covered that. I've known you guys for like a decade or a really long time. Like
Dude,
it's been a while.
That's
When you created that was the first time I contacted you, the Robins.
Yeah, I don't even remember when that was, but it's old.
I went looking
It's old.
for you for it, and you didn't have it because you stopped making it. And you're all, oh, one of the comic shops, you can go ask them. And it was Trinity Comics in Brookhurst that was out there, and they were under. So when they were closing down, I went, hey, I want that. So that's how I got it.
yeah.
Dude, thanks. Dude, I can't believe they went under. Was this during pandemic or after?
This was way before pandemic.
Way,
This
yeah.
was like during I want to say like 2000 and
Like 9? No.
Okay. See,
After
well,
you-
I know how old that is because that was before Little Gotham. And
yeah.
Little Gotham came out in 2012. So I did that as one of the pitch pieces. So that's how old that is. So yeah, I can kind of tell how old that is by looking at that. What are the other two pieces you got?
It's from Harry there's Simpsons. This dude made a series called what is it
Shadows
called?
over
Shadows over
Springfield.
Springfield, and it's just this dark fan made comic of Simpsons.
He made
And
his own dark
yeah,
dark
yeah,
fan comic.
it's pretty dark.
It's dark.
I'll bring you a copy next time I run into you. For
All right.
What? Yeah.
LA Comic Con you're gonna be at?
I might. I'm not sure. I'm debating it because I thought
But
so
you
I'm
will be
leaving
in
for
New York,
Dragon
right?
Con. Huh?
You'll be in New York?
No, I had to back out because I have Luca. I have Italy the weekend after,
Okay.
and I can't afford that much time off. Like I mean I'm freelance, but like to take because to go to Italy, it's like a 10, 12 day trip flying there and back, and because they're releasing Little Monsters for the first time in Italian.
Okay.
So the publisher coming out there promote with the publisher. So Luca is it's a great convention too. It's like they they shut down the entire city just for Comic-Con. And it's not just comics, it's all like, their books, and so they take like printed media really serious over there. And it's in a walled city, which sounds like you think Attack on Titan, but the wall is only like maybe 6 feet. So you can actually walk up the wall. It's a beautiful cobblestone city, and I was there back in 2016, I believe, when The Sinner was released in Italian. So Little Monster is being released in Italian. I'm very, very excited.
That is
But it is a week after New York Comic Con, so I was unable to do New York Comic Con because I'm I'm a little behind on our books now, and I don't want to fall any more behind. But I am leaving for Dragon Con this Thursday, which is my last summer con. But I might do LA. I might do LA. I didn't even know LA was it's in October or
Yeah.
September or something. Yeah, so I
October.
might. I'll see if I can get in. Yeah, it's so fun to have different cons like
Yeah.
Dude,
year round now.
you
Before it was
did
just San Diego and Chicago. That's it. You got two cons, and now it's every month, every week. There's like 10 of them.
you also did, was it this year that you did India Comic Con?
I did it last December, November. Yeah, it was great. It was really fun.
Yeah,
Um,
that looked awesome because it looked like it was outdoors, like
yeah, it was like Coachella, dude. And the floor is pink. They cover the floor pink, so it kind of looks like the When We Were Young festival out in Vegas.
yeah.
The music, so it looks like a music festival, but it's all comics, and they actually do music. So they have, being from America, we think everything is like revolves around our entertainment. We're like, we have, like Ariana Grande, we have The Weeknd, we have whoever. But you go there, and there's like, they have their own superstar. They're just huge, and they do bring in their own musicians, and they're banging. They're like really good. So I would go there, I take some time to watch them, and they have comedians. They have all kinds of. It's a full on like pop culture festival. Like you can win a car there, and you can buy all the bootleg stuff you can ever think of.
Really?
That's
I went there and I saw prints of my books that haven't came out yet. I was doing covers. There was that Batman, the blue cover. Remember, I did a whole line of just red ones. So we put out a blue one. I had barely sent the file in maybe 2 weeks before, and it was there as a print, bigger. It was just like $1. And I was like, what the hell did they get this file? The file is better than my file. And because I believe like printing media there is rather inexpensive. So like, they do a lot of print stuff, and it is outdoors because I think where I was in New Delhi, they didn't have an indoor venue. And I asked them, I was like, you guys aren't afraid of rain? They're like, this time of year, like it never rains. And they can predict it, dude. They can predict the weather. So
damn.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, it was
Did you
good
have
though.
to
It
make
was
your own print?
the cool thing is I went there and I did. I bought some of my own stuff for like it wasn't my stuff. It was like my other people I knew, but I knew they couldn't get back here. And like my friends, she bought some stuff, and we bought it for friends and stuff. But my stuff that I went there, the great thing is when I go there, they print stuff for me that I want to like. They're like, do you want to sell this print there? We can print it for you. And I was like, okay, so I don't have to carry anything out there. They just print it all, and
That's
and we
awesome.
price it way down because is it obviously it isn't the same spending that we have here. I mean, like, so we price it way down. I'm talking about like more than like a fourth of what we sell here. And I brought a bunch of stuff to sell, but I eventually just gave everything away, like my sketches and stuff, because it was like some people would ask for something, like I already have it done, and I knew I wasn't gonna sell anything, so I was like, I'm not gonna be here again, and these people are so like, they're so nice, and just the novelty of being there, knowing you might not be there again, like for another 5 years or something, it's like, so I just made the most of it. I was like, you get to a point where you just like, it's not even about the money because they brought you out there and they're just so nice. They paid for everything. And I get there, I'm just like, you want to give back, you want to draw for the people, like, so I like, if there's kids, I always draw. I mean, you've seen me at cons, it's like I'll sell
Oh
stuff, but when there's a
man.
kid there, it's like, those kids remind me of me when I was like going to the comic store or going to like a hotel convention, and the artists I was like love, they're just like, yeah, let me just draw it for you. It's not that busy. Let me just do it for you. Because I remember going to a convention that was held in like a Hilton or something, and yeah, they just like the artists back then just drew for us, And I remember meeting Jeff Masuda at Jeffrey's Comics, and he was signing, and he actually didn't even just draw for me. I showed him my portfolio. I was probably like in 11th grade or something, and then he looked at it, and then he went over it, and he's like, "Well, how about you do the panels like this?" And he was like giving me breakdown, and it was like it's like it's like the generosity of people is like part of what I've been blessed with. So it's like sometimes I'm like, you know, you gotta sometimes give it back, or else I'm a strong believer in karma. So, and I say that no one understands what I'm saying, but it yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Sometimes the fun is just being out there.
you were actually my first convention sketch.
Really, what con was it? Long Beach or?
No, it was WonderCon.
WonderCon.
I think
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
it was both of ours.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'd never done
you
it.
guys are old, so I would have charged you a lot. I knew I would have charged you a lot.
No, you were at the DC booth, and what was funny is that we I think our question you was like, "Oh, dude, are you local?" And then we're like, "Were you at Costco this week?" And then you were like freaking out because you were like, "Wait, why?" And we said, "Oh, we saw you at Costco."
That's
And
funny,
you were
dude.
tripping out that we knew who you even were. We're like, "Oh no, we saw you in the wild, and we knew who you."
We saw you buying toilet paper
Before it was cool.
before it was going. You know what's funny? During pandemic, they were filming people coming to Costco and they were pushing the cars. They're like, "This is what it's gone to. People are just buying toilet paper in bulk." And I'm watching. I'm like, "That's how you buy shit at Costco, dude. There is no other way to buy things at Costco." But it was just, yeah, it was like, yeah, I remember that. I remember like running into one of you guys, and I was wearing the Cinder shirt, and then I was like, "Damn it, dude, I'm embarrassing wearing my own merch outside."
We're like, dude, this
Yeah.
guy's like, if he's in the band, he's got his own band shirt on.
I know, right? Yeah, that's
said,
it's really embarrassing.
Name 3 characters in that book, bro.
I was like, "Oh, I don't know, man. I just like the shirt."
Yeah, but you were
No,
our first convention sketch, and I think it was awesome. And you set a precedent for every other convention after that. And I still have mine. I have it framed, everything. Like,
yeah, I mean, like every time I see you guys, and every time I see you guys have like you have your kids. I see them getting older, and then it's funny being at a con and seeing people only once a year. I remember kids coming up to my table and they were like this tall and then this tall, and then one year I just see 2 of them. I'm like, not only did you double in height, you multiply. Why are there 2 of them? There was this one kid. He's like, "Oh no, that's my twin." So we take turns going to the con to get sketches from you. And I was like, "Why did you?" It was like, they did it for years without telling me. And I was just like, "Damn, dude! Not only did you like skyrocket in height, you multiplied." And yeah, seeing stuff like that is just funny. Seeing the kids grow up, and they were like, "Yeah, I read your comics growing up. When I was like in 5th grade." And I'm like, "Fuck, how old am I? And how old are you now?" And like, "Yeah, I'm in college now." It's crazy. So
well, yeah, you said like 24 years now. You started in 2000. Yeah, it's
yeah, it's wild.
What is some advice you'd give to a up and coming artist?
I think the one I always tell people is like, I was on a panel in Boston with Joe Prada, and someone asked us that, and Joe had the best advice. He's just like, draw everything, draw whatever you can. So I'd kind of give the same advice to, just basically for a comic artist, I would say draw everything, draw anything you can, because comics isn't one where you have a separation of department, where you have someone working on props, someone working on characters, someone on special effects. You as a comic artist, you draw everything. So pick up comics you like and see how they're doing it. There's no shame in like copying it. I mean, I grew up for the longest time just tracing, Mike Mignola and Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld. What I mean? Like, there's no shame in it. And then once you get to a certain point where you actually feel confident in your own stuff, then obviously, you got to draw your own stuff. You can't be tracing. But I'm talking about like kids. As far as like, get yourself into a routine of drawing every day. If you're working a 9 to 5 job, if you have time, I know it's exhausting sometimes, like while I was trying to break into comics, I lived in Long Beach and I drove to Costa Mesa every day for work. And on the drive, I would be thinking of what I was going to draw. I would be reading scripts that I wrote for myself. And sometimes, I just jot down scripts of books that I've already read. Like if I saw something like, like say there was a cool Spider-Man book or Batman book, I jot down what the story was onto the page. And then I would, instead of bringing the page with me, I just write down what happened on the page. And then I just rehearse that in my head. Kind of like, like if you're like a songwriter, a rapper, and you just rehearse it in your head so many times where it starts clicking and you're like, this is what happens in here. This is the story, this is the pacing, this panel happens in this panel. And then when I got to my job, I worked at the engineering firm. I got there and like, when people weren't looking, I would just do panel breakdown, like little thumbnails, and I would look around me. There's stories. If there's like a story involved like an office or something, I would work into what I knew to draw in there. and I would do panel breakdowns and just little thumbnails. And then sometimes I would get that down. So on the drive there, think of the story. You know, when you have time, when you do have time, when you don't have time to draw, think of what you're going to draw. When you have time to draw like, start drawing. So I did thumbnails because comics, we do, a lot of panel stuff. And then after work, I'd get home. On the drive home, I'd think about like how I'm going to finish this. I was like, how am I going to, like, I'm in the mood today to draw just trees. I'm in the mood to just draw faces, maybe just hands, maybe just buildings today. So I get home and, after a 9-10 hour job, I go home and I get on my drawing table that I live with, my buddies. And, the good thing about living with those guys is I get home, I'm creatively drained. But they're very enthusiastic. They're like you guys, they love talking about comics all day and talking about art, So I go home, I'm exhausted, but then I'm reinvigorated. So I sit down and for the next, until I knock out, I'm just drawing panels. I'm drawing what I thought about, what I thumbnail. I draw, I start drawing the pages. And then before I go to bed, I would just think of the story again. I think about, okay, I read the script. What's the best way to approach the angle? Like, someone walks in a room. Do you want the camera at a certain angle? Do you want, which point of view do you want? So just think about that stuff. And then when I wake up again, before I go to work, I go back down. I just do a quick doodle. I'm like, okay, that's where you're going. Drive to work again. Think about it. On the drive there, think about it. So it's like 24/7. Like, it's like homework for the rest of your life, dude. And yeah, just train yourself. And like I said, draw what you're familiar with and draw what you like, but then draw everything else that you can. Because if you looked at Jet #1 and the first few issues of Wildcats, everything was very industrial. There's pipes, there's HVAC units, there's like, just tons of industrial hardware in there. And it's because I came from a background of just drawing HVAC units and, hardware and all the stuff for like aerospace, like hangars and stuff. So the first issue of Wildcats opens up page 1. Spartan is standing, his arms spread out, and in the back is a giant airplane hangar. Because I came from a background of building HVAC units for like Northrop Grumman and McDonnell Douglas. So it was like it was ingrained in my head that I was like, this is what I want to do, But you eventually have to draw everything. So, that's my best advice. Just draw what you're familiar with, whatever makes you happy, and then draw everything else. Because you're gonna have to, And you gotta draw on days where you don't feel like it. Because that's when when you start working, you gotta go to work on days you don't feel like it, So
Definitely.
that's probably it's discipline also, So yeah. I don't know if that's too much
No, that's
too
perfect.
much info.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So the art book is Descender. So after this
Yeah.
guy right here, that's coming out,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Yeah, it's gonna be Art of Descender, so it'll be a collection of we'll have Ascender too. You know what I mean? It'll be the collection of art from both series together. So yeah.
Sweet. And where can people find you?
They can mostly I'm just on Instagram at DUSS005. Yeah, I'm just on Instagram and stuff.
Cool.
We'll
I think that's where I do most things. I don't tweet, I don't have anything else. So
Well, Dustin, thank you so very
Dude,
much
thank
for
you
your
so
time,
much,
dude.
man.
We love
No.
you. Every time we go to the con, we always make sure we say what's up because
Yeah,
you're one of our favorite creators. And like you said, we've been hanging out with you and saying what's up to you every time. And
no, man, definitely.
you, dude.
yeah.
Likewise, yeah, I love talking to you guys, and I know we've talked about doing this for a while, and I was like, there's I usually don't do these things because I usually talk about the same thing over and over. Like, you'll see like people who are listening, they're probably like, oh, I remember he's talked about that before, But usually I run out of things to talk about, so I don't really. But I'm like, hey, this is a chance where we haven't talked, and we haven't caught up in a while. It's been pandemic, I haven't seen you guys, so it's good seeing you at a cons again. It was good seeing you in San Diego this year.
Yeah.
That was good
Yeah.
pizza. Good pizza. Shout out to Fernando. What's up,
Yeah.
Fernando?
TNK Comics, shout out.
TNK Comics,
Yeah.
man. Shout out to him, to all the homies. And shout out to you, man, for always being such a good person, man. Your artwork's phenomenal. Your
Oh, man,
attitude,
thank you.
everything you've ever done, man. You touch it, it's like Midas touch, man, turns to gold. So
Thank you, dude. No, thanks for all the support, man.
yeah, man. And then seeing you, like, we follow so many artists and we like talking to everybody. Every year at Comic-Con, we make a trek to go see all of our favorites that we see once a year. But seeing you be able to go out to India, to be able to go out to Italy, all these other countries, man, just know like living vicariously through you. Like we're like, hell yeah, it's cool.
Thanks, man. I mean, a lot of it I just hope everyone out there, like, just want to get our books to as many people as we can, and like,
Yeah.
That's
the goal.
like if you're gonna work on something, might as well get everyone to see it, So
Yeah. Yeah, and be
no,
sure.
thank
Yeah,
you, fellas.
yeah. I gave out the apparently what was it a Costco exclusive hardcover of Little Gotham that you said you didn't even
Oh,
know they made it hardcover. I must have bought like 10 of them, and I gave all 10 of them away because it's
awesome, man. Thank you. When you told me about that and you showed it, I was like, I went in there, I actually got a bunch of them for myself too, and I started like giving it as gifts because it's nicer to give as a hardcover gift.
yeah.
And I remember I was taking them, I was rearranging them in Costco. I was putting in the freezer section, and trying to get as many people to read it as possible. It was fun, man. I can't believe Costco actually put out their own. What a weird thing to put out, right? Like,
Yeah, we got to make
just
everything exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no, it was good times, man.
Yep.
But thank you, dude. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
you,
you,
man. We
brother.
appreciate you, man.
Hope to see you
Appreciate
soon.
brother.
All right, we'll talk soon, man. Maybe
Yeah.
LA Con. So
All
take
right,
care.
cool.
Bye.
Yeah, we go one. Bye.